called a massacre. 3 American mothers and 6 of their children ambushed by a Mexican drug cartel. More than 200 shots fired and their cars set on fire.
Not surprised the cartels are operating nationwide, coast to coast, in every U.S. state at this point.
The Chinese criminal organizations have such a desire for U.S. dollars in cash that they're getting into a variety of criminal enterprises to create that cash. And I'm not surprised to hear that them running cannabis grows, it's generating cash that they're then using to accomplish capital flight out of China.
Tonight, FBI and Homeland Security officials are warning U.S. law enforcement about the potential for terror inspired by that deadly ISIS attack in Moscow targeting a concert hall. The concern, according to the bulletin, violence targeting mass gatherings such as sports stadiums, concert venues, or houses of worship in the United States.
Among the record number of migrants crossing the southern border was a member of an Afghan terror organization who was released into the U.S. by border agents, according to U.S. officials.
Protesters at Columbia University took over Hamilton Hall on the school's campus. A Monday deadline to disperse given by school officials didn't stop anti-Israel activists from breaking into the building and unfurling a banner reading Intifada, a term sometimes used as a call for violence against Jews.
Get back! It is a protest movement that's spreading. This is the University of Southern California, one of many flashpoints across the country.
The police have issued a dispersal order on the USC campus. They've warned students that if they remain here, they will be arrested.
We've seen the threat from foreign terrorists rise to a whole nother level after October 7th. We continue to see the cartels push fentanyl and other dangerous drugs. China continues its relentless efforts to steal our intellectual property and most valuable information. And that's just scratching the surface.
And also deployed warships and aircraft today to track Russian vessels as they make their way to Cuba.
That's right. Last week, Moscow launched vessels toward the Caribbean for a series of planned military exercises.
However, marinetraffic.com shows one of the ships came within, get this, 30 miles of Key Largo, Florida.
The CCP's dangerous actions, China's multi-pronged assault on our national and economic security, make it the defining threat of our generation.
As times continue to dive deeper and deeper into both the dangerous and the unknown, we see more and more civilian and Minuteman-style groups continuing to form for their communities. And outside of just becoming the basic rifleman that every Minuteman should be, we start to see guys explore the different capabilities that their organizations can employ. And so today, on part 8 of the Modern Minuteman series, we're going to talk about the weapon choices for the Minutemen. Now, before we get started, guys, I do have to give 2 shout outs. The first to Partisan Solutions. Partisan Solutions is a great supporter of the channel, and they make adapters for red dots and RMRs and other types of kind of piggyback optics for your rifle. It's all made in America, run as a small business. You should definitely go over, show them your support, show them some love, and then get yourself a piggyback optic with their adapter. And then the second one goes out to Red Right Hand. You guys have seen Red Right Hand a ton on this channel, and while they didn't directly sponsor this video in any way, they did provide us with the upper for the MSSW that we'll talk about later in this video, and they've always been a great supporter of our channel, and we are a great supporter of them. Go over and check them out, guys, and get yourself an auto rifle upper. So let's talk about the weapon selections for the Minutemen. As I discussed before, guys, every Minuteman at their core should be a rifleman. And no, that's not a cheesy steal from the Marine Corps. But you kind of have 2 fields that this goes into. You have your standard AR platformed weapon, and then you have the next best, which is the AK. Now, most of these are going to be chambered in 7.62 by 39. but you'll also find a lot of these more modern ones chambered in 5.45. Now, obviously, I'm going to show preference to, the AR platformed weapon. There is an abundance of it all over the United States. They're very durable, very customizable weapons. 5.56 is abundant in the United States as it is. Even as we continue to kind of fall into a lower ammo capacity with all of the conflicts going on around the world, there's still so much 5.56 floating around. But knowing how to run an AK-47 or knowing how to run just a secondary platform that's different from the manual of arms from your primary weapon is going to be extremely important. And even just an AK-47 like this with some wood furniture, nothing but wood and steel, it's very aesthetic. You should appreciate the AK and 7.62x39. Now, when we start talking about our ARs, you can get really simple or really complex with a lot of this. For my primary AR weapon, I have an Air Precision and Sons of Liberty Gunworks kind of married together with an ACOG and a piggyback red dot. And then moving forward down the line, we got a BCM foregrip as always. Notice the direction that it's facing. We've got a Surefire weapon light that's both dual IR and white light. That IR can come in handy a lot of times, especially if you're not in a good environment that you have a lot of ambient light for your nods to kind of really thrive on, and you don't want to turn on the constant IR illuminator on your nods. Weapon light comes in really handy for that. Or you have your IR device. Now, this is a Holosun, and a lot of people are probably going to, cry Chinese, but honestly, this Holosun IR device has really done well, and it performs great. I really like the laser and the IR illuminator on it. The flood it performs really well. It's a little taller than I would like to see in an IR device, but it's pretty slim in its fashion, and the battery life on it is fantastic. So, but at the end of the day, your standard rifle should have your optic, your sling, and a weapon light. Everything else, night vision wise, and all the accessories that come with it, is an afterthought later. But optic or sights of some sort, weapon light, sling, boom, you're done. Moving next, still in that kind of AR platform, we have our designated marksman style rifles. Now, this could either be in the AR platform with, a higher, grain 5.56 caliber, like a 77 grain, or you could move this up to a higher capable caliber, such as, 308 or other, popular DMR style calibers. You kind of have two options when it goes to stuff like this, whether it be bolt action or semi-auto. I think for the modern Minuteman and the ranges that most of us are likely going to ever do engagements at, when we think of the big hoopla.
What? Bro, what are you talking about, man?
We're going to be talking semi-automatic is probably more applicable. For those of you that have taken classes, you know that bolt guns are always going to be a little bit more accurate and consistent when we start talking about really long ranges over its gas-fed partners. But when we're thinking 800 yards and in, there's absolutely nothing wrong with a, semi-automatic, platform weapon. Now, the nice thing about the 5.56 as a DMR style rifle is obviously if you run out of ammo, you can probably bum off the rest of your guys that's in your squad and probably pick up some 55 grain or 62 grain. But it's also familiar to you. It's familiar to everybody. Really, anybody can employ this weapon. It's just a little different than what your standard rifle looks like. You've got a bipod. You've got an LPVO or a more higher powered magnified optic in some sort of way. You may have a suppressor. You're probably going to start off with a 20 round magazine over a 30 round magazine just to help you in the prone. And this one for me is a Daniel Defense. It is a 16-inch. Since I have the ability to put a suppressor on here, I wasn't worried about stretching it out to an 18 or 20 inch. But that is where that is at. Next, we start talking about support weapons. And here we have the LSW. Now, we've been talking about LSWs on the channel for quite some time. The LSW is a light support weapon. The entire idea behind it is that it can increase your rates of fire with being able to be sustained by the small units. So this one specifically here is a arrow precision married with a Klein machining upper with a traditional barrel-mounted M60 bipod. And let me tell you, this thing can eat. It can absolutely eat, guys. Standard, you're probably going to be running a D60 drum backed up on your kit with some 30-round magazines. But some of the newer generations of the 100-round drums are also pretty good. You can use this you can use the 100-round drums in more fixed positions, more defensive positions. I wouldn't exactly advise going on a patrol with a 100-round drum unless you're just a big, strong boy, which you should be if you're going to be hauling around something like this. But we see a lot of the same attachments and accessories that we saw in our standard rifle with the IR laser, ACOG with a piggyback, surefire weapon light, so on and so forth. With the LSW guys and really any of the auto rifles that we employ, we have to really try to employ them to the best of our ability and put them in environments where they're going to succeed. Obviously, for the LSW and it being a 5.56 weapon, we're thinking about personnel suppression. We're not necessarily thinking about heavy targets, any type of armored vehicles or stuff like that. This is a truly suppression style weapon, and you should train behind it to get good at that. Now, if this was all you had and you didn't have any higher caliber capabilities, you're going to want to put this on avenues of approach, whether we're talking about the defensive position or use this as a suppressive weapon in the kind of support role for an assault, whatever it might be. The LSW has a ton of capabilities, guys, and if you're good enough with it and you have a decent optic, since you have the bipod and the naturally longer barrel, this can also kind of dabble as a DMR weapon, similar to how we saw the M27 IAR employed in the Marine Corps. Now, there was some mixed opinions about that and how it was employed and what its purpose was, but nonetheless, the purpose was there. So, like I said, guys, LSW, great for, personnel suppression, just absolutely throwing rounds down range and keeping people's heads down is going to make a huge, huge difference. Love the M60 bipod. Really do. Some people don't like the barrel-mounted bipod, but I've had zero problems with it or its barrel harmonics. Next, we have the MSW, which is newer. Now, this comes from Red Right Hand, the upper that is. It is the Recce Mar, and it is chambered in 308 or 7.62 by 51 NATO. Now, the idea behind the medium support weapon is bringing that same idea of the LSW just to the next level and providing the squad or the unit with a little bit more oomph behind what they're trying to accomplish. Obviously, 308 is going to do a little bit better against some levels of vehicles and, medium equipment and whatnot, as well as put a little bit more pressure on defense positions or people in fixed buildings, whatever that might be. Now, for this, we're looking at the D50 drum, and then your options behind that are going to be the 25-round PMAG. Unfortunately, there is no 100-round drum for this weapon platform yet, but hopefully we see that change because a 100-round 308 drum in a fixed position would be absolutely fantastic. Now, what I really love about the Red Right Hand auto uppers, and I've talked about it in the other LSW videos, is the heat mitigation system that is underneath the rail. Obviously, that's going to be huge for an automatic rifleman style role. As you continue to put rounds down range, this is just going to heat up more and more and more and more. This heat mitigation system allows you to take that canteen off your auto rifleman's kit and just drizzle a little water over top of it. And you're not putting water directly onto the barrel. And I think there's been a bit of a misconception about some of that in the past. What we're doing is we're putting water onto the coils and the rings that is the heat mitigation system around the barrel. And as that, those rings and those coils kind of cool, it pulls heat away from the barrel. So we're not actually compromising the integrity of the barrel in any way. Obviously, for the MSW, we're going to want a good bipod and, the same thing as before, a weapon light. We don't have any type of IR device on this yet, but it'll be there in the future. Now, a lot of people don't like the idea of the automatic rifleman role because they think it's trying to imitate the capabilities of a belt-fed weapon. And I should really, really stress that the LSWs and the MSWs are not belt-fed weapons. They are support weapons used by automatic riflemen. Two completely different things. Just some of the things, the skills and the thought process of how they're employed carry over from one another. And outside of the actual manual of arms for the belt feds, a lot of the skills and knowledge kind of transfers over. If you ever get spicy and you actually get your hands on some belt fed weapons, a lot of that will kind of transfer over. You're just going to have to learn a new weapon system. So, once again, if you have the optic, set up on this could possibly serve as a DMR style weapon as well, but we just have an EOTech with no magnification currently, so not a viable DMR option. Now, before we get into the specialty weapons, just kind of a special consideration that everybody should think about, and that is going to be kind of your bolt action and or just hunting rifles. Obviously, these are going to pack a little bit more of a punch than our standard 7.62 or 5.56 weapons. This is my Savage 30-06. And let me tell you, it's put down a lot of deer in the time that I've had this rifle. It's put down many deer. And it will do great against enemy combatants as well. But these types of weapons should not be overlooked. They normally have decent optics on them. They can really reach out and touch something. They come in that higher caliber. If you're spicy enough and still have a little bit of black tip 30-06 laying around, you may find that it will become useful. So don't forget about your hunting rifles, guys. I'm not saying employ an army of guys with 22 long rifles, but something like this, a 30-06, can go a long way. Now, moving along to our specialty guns, shotguns. Shotguns are really good at what they're good at, and they're not very good at what they're not good at. And that's what kind of makes them special. So, right here, we have a classic Mossberg 12 gauge with an 18.5-inch barrel, and obviously some tactical furniture on it. Shotguns can be used for a lot of different purposes. We can use them for breaching, we can use them for room clearing, and to a very, very minor extent, they can be used against drones. Now, if you've studied drones enough at this point in time and you've been looking at how they've been used overseas in the different conflicts around the world right now, you know that a shotgun with birdshot is not the ultimate solution to drones. A lot of drones are moving really, really, really fast, and unless you employed a state champions team worth of skeet shooters, you're probably not going to be able to seriously impact drones with shotguns. However, it is an option that you can use. You should employ other options. What I really look at this more for is its breaching capabilities. I would rather carry a shotgun with breaching rounds and have this hunk of metal have other capabilities such as anti-drone, anti-personnel, whatever it might be, other than trying to carry around a mechanical device such as a Halligan bar that really only serves one purpose. So a shotgun, definitely a man's friend. It's going to kind of change the setup for some people, and your ammo loadouts are going to be very specific, and you're going to have a system that organizes the different types of loads that you have in your rounds. But shotguns, extremely, extremely beneficial, guys. Now, another thing that guys really don't think about a lot is grenade launchers. Whether it be 37 mil or you paid for a tax stamp unconstitutionally and got a 40 mil. Now, unfortunately, we cannot currently get HE rounds for either our 37s or our 40 mils. However, what you can get is smokes. You can get bangers or concussion rounds, or some are marketed as anti-wildlife rounds. Very interesting take on that. You have flares, and I believe IWA is getting even spicier, coming out with a parachute flare, which, for those of you that were in the infantry, if you know, you know. So the 37 mil is definitely a great option that you can explore. I would suggest the 37 mil over the 40 mil just because, one, rounds are going to be a little cheaper. You don't have to pay the tax stamp, and they're usually a little less expensive. But you do have some limitations with the 37 mil versus the 40. The 37 mils distance when it comes to rounds and how far you can actually fire them is not going to be as great as the 40 mil, obviously, but you can either get them as standalone options or you can get them as, rifle mounted options. So there's a lot of potential behind the launchers, specifically from the smoke perspective, but also the banger and concussion grenades, because it's really one of the only true non-lethal options you kind of have. And depending on what you're trying to do, that's probably worth trying to employ and, considering. So 37 mil launchers, definitely something you should think about. I prefer a barrel mounted one, but this one I have here is a standalone. Works just as well. Now, last but not least, the 50 cal. Now, this one is the shorty version. It is not the standard length version, but nonetheless, the 50 cal can truly do some damage. Now, the rounds are going to be expensive. The weapon itself is, of course, expensive, and the optic is expensive. But you would be surprised how many people actually have 50 cals. And considering what they're able to do, especially kind of its anti-vehicle and equipment capabilities, the 50 cal is kind of like a no-brainer. It's obviously a huge expense. It's kind of one of those things where it's like, if you're going to get one, great. But it's not something I would be like, all right, we have to prioritize getting a 50 cal. Not if you have so many other things to focus on, like how am I going to collect water for all of these different people? Or what is my chow plan? Or do I even have ammo to support all the weapons I have now? But if someone has a 50 cal, great, fantastic. Employ it. Let everybody shoot it. Let everybody get their hands on it. The 50 cal is a absolutely fantastic platform that really just packs a punch. But it is going to be extremely heavy, obviously. You're not going to have a guy that's just carrying this around with a bunch of 5-round magazines, on his plate carrier, his chest rig. This is going to be a little bit more special, a little bit more fixed, a little bit more vehicle deployed style weapon. But it is definitely an option, to say the least. Do not forget about the 50 cal, guys. Now, at the end of the day, guys, we talk about the employment of all of these different weapons, but the Minuteman starts at the daily carry basis. Your CCW, and then maybe a little bit by extension, your PDW, your personal defense weapon, or that short AR with a folding stock, whatever it might be, that truck gun, that is where the big difference is really made, guys. This stuff is cool. Training with this stuff is awesome, but the reality that you'll employ it is very small. Even as we progress further and further into the unknown and the dangerous and the kind of threatening times, the chances that you employ this in a tactical environment is still very small. But the likelihood that you will employ your CCW and a truck gun, those are actually pretty common. Truck gun a little bit less than your CCW, but your CCW specifically, with the threat of terrorism currently and crime, everything else going on in the world right now, that's where you need to really make sure that you're squared away on. Make sure that you are adequately trained with your CCW handgun, whatever that is. Carry good quality ammunition, carry a good quality pistol, and you will be set up for success, guys. So that is all I've got, guys, for part 8 of the Modern Minutemen series. We're talking about weapons. Weapons is obviously a cool one like we like to talk about. This kind of video layout was kind of inspired by Brent0331. If you don't watch his channel, you're wrong. Fix yourself. Head over there. He does a ton with the Infantrymen series, and he reviews different camouflages, weapon systems, chest rigs, all of the things we like without a lot of the cheesiness. At least I like to think so. So head over there, guys. Give him a look. Big shout out to him. And other than that, guys, that's really all I've got. Don't be wasting a bunch of money on different weapons if you don't have ammo and gear to support the weapons you currently have. That's all I've got, guys. Until next time, train hard, train often.